Dividends are great. Every few months you have free money show up in your wallet. But there are 6 common traps I hear about all the time from Kiwi and Aussie investors that can destroy your returns. In this video, I'll show you what these mistakes are, why they impact your returns, and how you can avoid them. First up, let's look at the classic dividend safety illusion. One of the first things we do when we look for a dividend stock is we look at the dividend yield. One step further is looking at the dividend history or the streak of making a payout. The issue here is that as dividend investors, we're always looking backwards, not forwards. If a business's fundamentals are weakening, say they have declining sales, its dividend is living on borrowed time. A great example of this is VF Corp. They had increased their dividend for decades and were considered rock solid. But when their earnings started to fall, they had to slash their dividend payout. A local example is Sky City Entertainment, which has seen falling profits and operating cash flow. This has resulted in slashed dividend payouts. The lesson here is to not judge dividend safety by past streaks alone. A common way that many investors assess this is by looking at whether earnings and free cash flow comfortably cover the dividend. The tricky part with doing this is finding the numbers easily and reliably. Things like payout ratios, free cash flow coverage, balance sheet strength, it can all get very overwhelming. Now, we all know Investing.com. I want to talk about their flagship product, InvestingPro. It can be extremely helpful here. I've been using them now for a few years, and here's a couple ways the tool helps me identify dividend opportunities. First, the stock screener. Here I can sort through 53,000 stocks from all around the world, and it's highly customizable. If I want Australian blue chip companies paying at least a 5% dividend yield, it's as easy as this, and I get a short list of around 20-30 stocks. Second, I can jump into Warren AI, which is like a supercharged ChatGPT for investing. I can ask it to research the stocks from a perspective of a dividend investor. This is important because I find it uncovers things that I didn't find myself that can affect the quality of the dividend payments. Stanmore Resources, for example, pulled all of this data in less than a minute, even providing traffic light signals for key dividend considerations. So it's a powerful tool for research, exploration, or even just as a financial sidekick to double check your work. Investing.com is currently running their New Year sale, offering 55% off plus an extra 15% off for my audience by using the code Brent. Just click the link in the video description or scan this QR code to get started with Investing Pro today. It's for a limited time only, so don't miss out. Moving along, the second common mistake is yield chasing. A 7 or even an 8% yield sounds amazing. Who wouldn't want that, right? But chasing the highest yield is one of the quickest ways to get burnt. Dividend yield is calculated by dividing two values, the past year of dividend payments and the current stock price. Mathematically, if our stock price dives 50%, our yield doubles. In such a case, this is a major warning sign because investors are selling out of the stock, worried about its future prospects. A great example of this is General Mills. In late 2024, it traded in the 70s, and today it's down in the 40s. Revenue is falling, profits are too, but the dividend yield is actually up big time despite the actual payment barely changing. So in simple terms, a sky-high yield that isn't supported by positive news or financial information is a major red flag. Rather than indicating a payday, it could signal a pay cut. This is known as a dividend trap, where you invest for the high yield, then later the dividend is cut and you're left holding the bag. To avoid falling for a dividend trap, it's important to consider the quality of the company and ask a question. Why is the yield high for any given stock? Is the business growing or has the share price fallen? Is the revenue, profits, or free cash flow growing or falling? If these factors are shrinking while the yield is rising, this is a major warning sign. A genuine dividend yield is supported by a company that has strong fundamentals. A low yield from a strong, healthy business is often far safer than a high yield from a struggling one on life support. For most investors, company fundamentals tend to matter more than headline yield. Hey guys, just jumping in here to say that I've created a dividend safety checklist, and that could be a really useful place to go if you want to get a starting point for how to find dividend stocks. If you're interested in it, check out the link down below in the video description. The third mistake many ignore is dividend growth. Dividend investing isn't just about the current yield, it's also about growth. A common mistake is ignoring stocks that have lower yields today but consistently grow their dividends year after year. Don't skip great businesses just because their starting yield is only 1 or 2%. Those fast growers can deliver much higher income down the road. For example, Visa and Apple might yield less than 1% today, but if they increase that dividend by 10% plus every year, your yield on cost will grow over time. On the other hand, a marginal stock yielding 5% today but never increasing their dividend will only ever yield 5%. To add to that, it won't keep up with inflation. So the key is to balance current income with future growth. Companies that consistently raise their dividends can eventually surpass the income of high-yield, no-growth stocks today. I have a friend that invested in a heavily hit stock during COVID. Once their business recovered and dividends resumed, on a cost basis, he now earns a 30% dividend on a cost basis. Now, this is far from normal, and it took him a few years to get there, but it shows how growth can change the picture over time. So look for dividend potential, not just what the yield is today. The fourth mistake is to ignore the implication of tax. Dividends are treated as income in both New Zealand and Australia and are therefore subject to tax. Now, tax isn't a lot of fun. These taxes are taken from your dividend payment, so it's called a tax drag as it can significantly impact your returns. Over decades, the difference taxes can make to your returns can be huge. All of these little payments out of your portfolio never have a chance to compound and grow your wealth. Fortunately, there are a couple things you can do to minimize or even eradicate your taxes on dividend investments. But these, of course, are subject to your individual circumstances, of course. First, we have Australia's franking credits and New Zealand's imputation credits. These are extremely important. Simply, companies pay tax on their profits, and the benefit of this is passed to you as tax credits. These are used to offset your personal tax bill, or if you're on a low income, it could even provide a refund, therefore elevating your return. Second, you want to make use of tax-advantaged investment accounts. Australia applies a 15% tax rate on income earned through super, dropping to 0 in retirement. In New Zealand, KiwiSaver applies the PIR rate of tax, which caps out at 28%. On income, this can go as high as 39%, so 28% is quite the reduction. So retirement accounts in both Australia and New Zealand can be a great way to minimize your tax bill. Third, New Zealand applies different rules for domestic versus international investments. It's called the fifth tax, and it applies to most offshore investments once they exceed 50,000 New Zealand dollars on a cost basis. Many Kiwi investors prefer to invest into locally listed companies on the NZX or through locally domiciled funds, as A, they don't generally count towards the fifth threshold, and B, local funds are often structured as PI funds. Now, PI funds are really great as they apply the PIR tax rates, which are often lower than what we pay on our income. Kiwi and Aussie stocks pay relatively high dividends when we look around the world, so there are several advantages to investing near home. The bottom line is that it's not about just what you make through dividends, it's also what you keep. If you ignore tax drag, you might think your dividend portfolio is doing great, but your real after-tax returns could tell a different story. And fourth, just for completeness, we have to talk about capital gains. This is less important for dividend investing as it applies to capital appreciation and not income, but it's still relevant to the world of investing. In Australia, a capital gains tax is applied when you buy and sell an investment for a profit. If you hold the investment for less than 12 months before you sell, you will be taxed at your marginal income rate on the upside. So this can be pretty expensive. If you hold the investment for longer than 12 months from the time of purchase, you get a 50% discount. So if you're a long-term dividend investor, this is something to be aware of. In New Zealand, on the other hand, there is no capital gains tax on equities at this point in time. The fifth mistake many dividend investors make is ETF complacency. Dividend ETFs are fantastic tools that give you instant diversification and easy income. But a big mistake is getting complacent just because you bought an ETF. Now, it's tempting to think, I own an index of dividend stocks, so I can set it and I can forget it. But the truth is you still need to pay attention as they all have different strategies and risks. I've spent a lot of time looking at dividend ETFs and every single one of them is different. Some are heavily focused on a single industry like financials or mining, while others use options or otherwise to increase income like YMAX from BetaShares. So unknowingly, you might be investing in something more concentrated or with more risk than you intended. You should know what you own and why you own it, even if it's an ETF. Fortunately, there is a lot of transparency around this at the fund issuer's website. You can see the top holdings, sectors, and even regions where you're invested. You can even use the top holdings list for your own research, as you can drill into the specific stocks that contributed to the fund's dividend. For example, you can see here that Combank makes up 15% of the YMAX ETF. So don't make the mistake of investing blindly into so-called dividend ETFs. Do the same kind of research you do into regular stock or ETF investments. The sixth and final mistake I see investors make all the time is overweighting on dividends too early. This is a point for the younger investors out there. Now, it might seem wise to load up on dividend stocks as soon as you start investing. After all, who doesn't love passive income? But overweighting your portfolio with high dividend stocks too early can stunt your long-term growth. When you're in your 20s or 30s, your biggest asset is time, which means you can afford to focus on growth and let compounding work its magic. The danger of overweighting dividends too early is opportunity cost, or the money you could have made if you had let your portfolio grow more aggressively. Dividends in this part of the world tend to come predominantly from the financials and materials sectors, which tend to be less dynamic from a growth perspective. So investing in a broad market index or a growth-focused portfolio might compound at a faster rate. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to your personal preference. I just want to highlight that there generally is a trade-off between income and growth, and you can always pivot into more income-focused investments later in life. When we're young, we can work long hours, upskill, and do a whole lot of things to augment our income. As we age, our life commitments and energy levels reduce, inhibiting our ability to increase income. When we're older, this is when dividends really shine, as the income is passive. But it's a function of how much capital we've invested, so dividend stocks early on can stunt that growth. Just a couple last additions that are important to highlight. Dividends aren't waterproof, and during recessions, many companies can cut the payout, as we saw during the pandemic. So just be wary of this risk, as many investors base their incomes around dividends as though they're guaranteed payments. This is unfortunately not the case. The second item is to be wary of exchange rates when investing in foreign dividend-paying assets. Our currencies in Australia and New Zealand are highly volatile, so even if the gross payment is unchanged, the impact of exchange rates can improve or worsen the payout in our home currency. So that wraps up the 6 common mistakes I often hear from dividend investors in Australia and New Zealand. Nothing I discussed is strictly a mistake. At the end of the day, it all comes down to your investment goals and what you're looking to achieve. Everything I've discussed is general in nature and not financial advice. Always consider your personal circumstances or speak to a qualified advisor before making any investment decisions. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I've posted over 250 videos showing Australian and Kiwi investors how to grow their wealth through stocks, dividends, home ownership, and many others. Also, make sure to check out InvestingPro and get this amazing tool for 55% off, plus an extra 15% discount using my code Brent. It's incredible for finding stocks, analyzing companies, and spending a lot less time scanning for investment options. I've spent a lot of time scanning the Australian market, and over here are my findings of some top dividend stocks currently trading in Australia. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to catching you on the next one. Cheers.